After that, Beer drove back to New York and returned to the hospital. I was scared, he told me. A long time before, they had fitted us for N95s. You go into this room and they put a hood on you and spray some stuff to make sure that you can't smell it. Usually, no one takes it seriously because you never need it. But with COVID, it was like, okay, this is not a drill. At the ICU, a nurse handed Beer a new mask. I remember holding my breath before I put it on, and then checking all the seals like they taught us, because I didn't want to breathe the air of the ICU. And I realized that I was going to be in that thing for the rest of the day. This is how I'm going to work here. This is how I'm going to breathe. It wasn't just the day, though, nor even the month. The outbreak became the pandemic, and the pandemic became an enduring reality. Beer worked in the hospital for all of it, and the mask, he said, became my guard against any exposure, the thing that made me okay. Of course, he took it off when it was appropriate. I drove a lot in the first months of the pandemic, he recounted, and my car became the safe space. It was amazing, actually. There was no traffic, no one on the roads, so I'd drive to the hospital and I'd just feel free. But his wife returned home after the first surge subsided, and he still had to be careful. In most places, at work, in stores, any time he was around other people, really, Beer kept his mask on, snug and secure. It's weird, he said, but it became my habitat, the only place I really felt comfortable. I met Beer in the fall of 2021, at the first large indoor gathering he'd attended since the pandemic started, a Yom Kippur service in Brooklyn. Yom Kippur is the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. It's the Day of Atonement, when Jews ask forgiveness and repent for their sins. It's the day of remembering and mourning for the dead. It's also the day when the Book of Life, the sacred text where God writes the names of every person whose deeds merit another year on earth, is sealed. I don't know many of the prayers that Jews say on this day, but there is one, Unetana Tokef, whose words I've been able to recite since childhood. On Rosh Hashanah it is inscribed, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. How many shall pass away, and how many shall be born? Who shall live, and who shall die? Who in good time, and who by an untimely death? Who by water, and who by fire? Who by sword, and who by wild beast? Who by famine, and who by thirst? Who by earthquake, and who by plague? In the service, the prayer continued beyond these lines, but this is where my mind lost focus, where I couldn't help but think about the millions of people who had died of COVID since 2020 started, and of the millions more whose names would not be inscribed in the Book of Life that day. Thinking about millions of people means thinking about statistics, however, and the truth is that most of us, myself included, have trouble making sense of loss at this scale. Instead, I found myself wondering about those closer to me, my elderly parents and relatives whose fate concerned me, my wife's uncle, who had died of COVID-19 a few months before, and her mother, who lived alone and had grown relatively isolated during the pandemic, even though she was just a few blocks away. My colleagues, some of whom perished in the early days of the pandemic. My children, whose lives were reduced and interrupted, whose dreams were now haunted, whose futures would be altered in ways we could not yet understand. I also knew that we were fortunate, the ones with good health care, with food on the table, with steady income, with savings, with love and support. Who shall live and who shall die? I could not say, but I knew it would be shaped by whether and how a person was protected or exposed. Despite his job, Beer had found a way to keep himself and his wife safe through the pandemic. I always felt protected because I had this sealed bubble around my face, he told me. I know people hated the mask, but I wound up liking it because it allowed me to be human again. But the mask could not keep out his anxiety about the virus and the situation it had created in the hospital, the city, and beyond. And both the virus and the situation kept evolving, sparking new emergencies, inducing new traumas, testing everyone, each in their own way. For Beer, the trauma of 2020 came not only from working in a place where death suffused the environment, but also from the sense that his world had narrowed, that he and his family had gotten through it by locking themselves in a chamber, holding their breath. Beer had moved to New York City because he wanted to breathe in everything.